Today we are going to do a build for the dreaded Pugilist, a class which many have stated is far too broken, which I disagree with, just inherently. And I've got the numbers to back it up this time, so, you know, numbers always help, right? In fact, if you want to see the numbers, you can do so. I am going to do a Pugilist, straight Pugilist build from 1 to 20, talking about the way the class would play, basically. The risks attached to the technically optimal play style if you want to do the most damage, and everything else in between. This is a build based on the grappling subclass, the squared circle, because it's the one I wanted to build around most and got the inspiration for. I will probably come back to this class to do some other subclasses as well, though, because I really like the class. I think it's incredibly cool. Let's get to it, shall we? I am going to go through some number comparisons at the end of this build. I just want to go through the build itself, as I normally would, because that's what I want the focus to be about. The comparison stuff is a little treat at the end. How exciting for everybody who loves comparisons. Anyway, this build I'm calling Asura's Math because I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. We're going for Simic Hybrid for the species option here. You get Dark Vision, which is fine, but the main thing you get is 2 animal enhancements. You get one of these at level 1. I've gone for, I think I went for Manta Glide, just so that you don't take damage, basically. And don't take falling damage in the event that you end up falling. And then at level 5, you get 3 options there as well, but the one we're going to take is the grappling appendages. This gives you 2 claws or tentacles with which you can attack and grapple with. And while normally it suggests that you'd have to attack and then use a bonus action to grapple, thanks to the fact that these are unarmed attacks, even though they are using natural weapons, we can grapple with them as we hit due to one of the class's features. So that's super funky. Big fans of it. So that's why I've gone Simic Hybrid, because we can hold 4 people at once, and that brings me joy. Our ability scores are shown at level 20. The class gets a 2-point buff to both strength and constitution. But what we would be starting with here is a 17 in strength, a 10 in dex, 16 in con, 8 intelligence, 8 wisdom, 14 charisma. You could certainly spread those out a little bit better if you wanted fewer negatives, but it's entirely up to you. For our background, I have gone for the Pioneer background from Grim Hollow. This gives us a few things, but the most important one is the Survivor origin feat. This gives us a few really cool things. It gives us advantage on any intelligence-based D20 tests when we take the study action, which is basically any intelligence-based D20 test at all, which is fantastic. It gives us the ability to only eat half as much food, which is not going to be relevant in a lot of campaigns, but might be super relevant in some. But most importantly, because of the way this class interacts with exhaustion, I thought it was important to try to find more ways to get rid of it before level 20. At level 20, you get the ability to just get rid of all of it over a long rest, but that's at level 20. You need to survive up until that point. So it has Shake It Off, which means that you can actually get rid of 1 level of exhaustion on a long rest, which allows you to manage it a lot more consistently throughout the playtime with the build. Level 1, we get our Fisticuffs ability, which lets us deal 1d8 of damage if we use simple melee weapons, improvised weapons, or unarmed strikes. We're obviously going to be doing unarmed strikes. There isn't an improvised weapons subclass for this class, which makes me a little sad. That's the one thing I would have loved to have seen. Though you could certainly play any of them with improvised weapons if you wanted to. This also lets us make an unarmed strike as a bonus action, which is important because that means we effectively get 2 attacks straight off the bat, which is good for our damage, as it turns out. It also gives all improvised weapons the SAP weapon mastery, which is really entertaining. Big fan of it. We also get Iron Chin, which means that our base armor class is 12 plus our con, whether we're wearing light armor or no armor, and as long as we're not wielding a shield. This means that you don't have to wear armor, but it also means that if you get magical light armor, instead of using your dex, you can use your con, which gives you a substantially better AC as a result. Although I would argue that generally speaking, you want to be taking hits with this, so I would actually probably opt for no armor, because you really do want to be getting hit. The damage at level 1, because you're doing 2 hits of d8 plus 3, is 7.5 twice, which is 15. Nice and easy. I love a non-spellcaster when it comes to maths. At level 2, Moxie gives you 3 abilities you can spend your points on. You can use a bonus action and expend 1 point to brace for attacks, which gives you some temp health, which is fantastic. It's quite a lot of temp health as well. It's a number of temp health equal to the number rolled on your Fisticuffs die, plus your Pugilist level, plus your con mod, which at this point is going to be an average of around 8, I believe. No, 9, because it's 5 plus the 4.5. Yeah, these vanish after 10 minutes. That's good if you're looking to survive. You can also, as a bonus action, spend 1 Moxie point to make an unarmed attack and then dash or disengage, which is incredibly cool. But the one that we're going to be using for the numbers in this build is the 1-2 punch, which lets you expend 1 Moxie point and as a bonus action, make 2 unarmed strikes. This boosts our damage by another 7.5, so we're going up to 22.5 at this point. We also get Bloodied and Unbowed at level 2, which lets us get our Moxie points back when we're hit as a reaction, which does offset the slightly fewer Moxie points that we will be getting as we level up. Swagger Streak. There are too many features in this class. I say there's too many. I don't think there's too many. I think there's a lot, and I think that this class would be a terrible choice for a first-time D&D player. I think you do need to know about D&D and be comfortable juggling all these things. But if you compare it to a caster, you've probably still got fewer options than a spellcaster would have. It's just that and I think that this kind of design would be really, really cool to see in the other martials as well, to help offset the general balance and complexity of play, I guess, that is the gap between martials and casters. It's not just the power level, it's the utility, and it's the how many cool things can I do, in my opinion. Swagger Streak allows you to, if you fail a strength, dex, con, or charisma check, spend a Moxie point to add your fisticuffs die, and then you succeed, but you've spent the point. If it fails, you regain the Moxie point, but you can't use the feature again until you take a short or long rest. The reason it's called Swagger Streak is because if you succeed, you can keep succeeding, which I like from a naming standpoint, I guess. Let's move on to level 3, shall we? Level 3, we get our subclass, obviously, but before that, we get Heavy Hitter, which lets us use both the damage and either grapple or shove when we make an unarmed strike. This gives us a big boost to our grappling capabilities. It also makes the grappler feat an odd choice for this class, and this subclass especially. You would still get the advantage on your attacks against your grappled creatures, which is good. And at the moment, you'd get the ability to move them without spending any additional movement points, but you do get that later. Movement points, speed, but you do get that later in the subclass. So it's a weird one. I'm not taking it with this build. I do think taking it is still perfectly reasonable because advantage is a big deal. It's up to you. There are 6 subclasses. I went through them in the other video. We are going for the Squared Circle, which is the MMA/Wrestler one. This gives us a few things. This gives us the ability to make it harder for creatures to succeed against our grapple checks. It allows us to use both the grapple and shove option, which means that we can push them to the floor, I believe is how that would work. And it also means that if we have a creature grappled at the start of our turn, we can deal bludgeoning damage to each creature we have grappled. No action required, which is our fisticuff die plus our strength mod. I am going to be running the numbers, assuming we have 1 creature grappled during this. You could theoretically grapple up to 4 with this build at level 5. I love the imagery. But I'm going to just assume 1. It also gives you muscle mass, which gives you proficiency or expertise in acrobatics or athletics. The damage at this point is now up to 30, which is decent. Level 4 is one I'm pretty excited about because we're going to take the Street Justice feat, which is from one of the more recent D&D official first-party books. It gives you a boost to your strength, which means we're going up to 18, with our modifier on that will be +4 now instead of +3, which is always nice. It gives our allies advantage on attack rolls against a creature we've grappled, which means that you can give all of your allies just so much advantage, which I do think is incredibly cool. It also lets us tie up creatures, basically, more efficiently, and also intimidate them more efficiently, which is also good. We also get Dig Deep, and I think this is the first of 2 features that make people feel as though this is a massively overtuned class. Dig Deep allows you to use a bonus action, and for 10 minutes you gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, and you also ignore the effects of exhaustion levels less than 6. This means that you don't get the minuses to your d20 tests. You can only do this once per long rest, or you can gain a level of exhaustion to use it again. So theoretically, you can use this 5 times, 6 times per long rest, right? Assuming you're not taking exhaustion from anything else. The downside of this is that if you are that tired, as somebody that is that tired in real life perpetually, it does make everything else a little bit trickier. So you're going to have a really hard time outside of combat, which I think is something that this class struggles with in general. It's very combat focused. You're not getting a huge amount for in combat, although you can offset that with different origin feats or different feat choices even as you go along. You could take Skill Expert, for example, but it is worth noting. Level 4, our damage is up to 34, so not a huge jump in damage. Level 5 will be slightly bigger for a couple of reasons. Level 5, we get not only our grappling appendages, which means that we can grab 4 creatures now, which is just, I just adore it. But we also get extra attack, which is obviously always good. And our damage goes up to a D10 as well. And while that would normally only be a 1-point increase, it is a substantial increase for this because we get the Haymaker ability, which I think is the other one that makes people really feel like this thing is busted. And I can see why, but I'm going to explain why I don't think it. Haymaker reads, when you make an attack with an unarmed strike or pugilist weapon, you can expend 1 moxie point to swing with wild abandon. On a hit, you regain the moxie point and you deal maximum damage with that attack. At this point, we have 3 moxie points. Assuming you use a moxie point and you hit every time, and that's how I'm going to be doing my damage, which is extraordinarily unrealistic. Normally, I assume we're hitting, but I assume we're rolling average damage to try to account for the times when you're not going to be hitting and also the times when you're going to be rolling higher, right, or lower. Average damage is average for a reason. I don't do the AC thing that Colby does. I probably should, but I'm a little guy YouTuber. I will make this better as we go on. I promise. I'll get better. For now, what this means is the maths I have to do is a lot simpler, which I kind of appreciate. It means that we're doing 1 attack of 1d10 plus 4, 1 extra attack of 1d10 plus 4, 2 bonus attacks of that as well. All of these are maxed, so that's 14 times 4, right? Which is not bad at all. It's 56 damage. We also get the grapple damage at the beginning of the turn, which is just 9.5, because that doesn't get maximized. So that's a total damage at this point is 64.5. That is strong, undoubtedly. It's actually slightly less than a really silly memey Dragoon fighter build I did. It's 16 points less, I think, than that. And that was just the average damage, which means it could be higher, or it could be lower. That's the way this works. So comparisons between classes numerically are tricky because while this one can theoretically do maximum damage every time, realistically, you're also going to be using your moxie points in other ways. You're not always just going to be attacking. So this is the maximum damage it can do in every sense of that word. This is the maximum damage you could do if you're just attacking and also you're not constantly about to be, carted off to the morgue. Level 6, we get Moxie Fueled Fists. This lets us change our unarmed strikes or improvised weapon strikes to force instead of normal damage, which is fun. We just get Meat Shield, which is probably my favourite feature of this class, especially if we can grapple 4 people. It gives you half cover if you have a creature grappled against any creatures that you're not grappling. If a creature that you're not grappling attacks you and misses, you can take a reaction and expend a moxie point to put one of the creatures you're grappling in. The attacking creature has to re-roll an attack against the creature you're grappling. I think this is one of the coolest subclass features going. It's my favourite. It brings me joy in a way I just cannot put into words. Our damage does not go up though. Our damage at level 6 stays at 64.5. At level 7 we get, I think, the final of the broken abilities. Down but not out. When you use your bloodied but unbowed, which is how you get your moxie points back, you enter a special state basically, where for the next minute you can add your con modifier plus the number of exhaustion levels you have to every single one of your attacks. You can only do this once per long rest. You can't get it back. This is a one-time thing. But generally with my builds, I'm thinking about the highest possible damage they can do in terms of average damage. Don't think about it too much. I'm not going to add this to my damage calculations for now. If you wanted to, at this point, it could theoretically be an extra 8 damage per attack, which would be an extra 32 damage. I will factor in at level 20 when I'm doing all the comparisons properly. The reason I'm not factoring it in at this point is because it relies on not only being attacked, but being attacked and being bloodied, which means that you're not going to be doing this in every single fight, not unless you're purposely not healing or beating yourself up on the way to every single fight you get into, which is a funny way of min-maxing. Don't think it's a realistic thing to do, right? This is more of a bonus. And again, that's to say nothing of the fact that if you're walking around with 5 levels of exhaustion, your character's barely functional most of the time. Maybe they've got kids. Level 8. Sorry, I made myself laugh. It's important when you're, clinging to sanity. Level 8, I'm going to take Hulking Figure as our feat. This not only lets us boost our strength or constitution by 1, both of which are good things for us, but we're obviously going strength to 19 here. It also lets us add 1d4 extra bludgeoning damage to a target we hit with our unarmed strikes, which we can maximize because of the silly moxie thing. It also lets us add our strength modifier to our charisma checks, just the intimidation, performance, and persuasion ones, and we count as 1 size larger when determining our carrying capacity. This lad can carry so much things. I wish carrying capacity was relevant in combat. It would be really cool if carrying capacity was linked to your ability to grapple in some way. Not necessarily all the time, because that would take away the monk's ability to do so, right? But it would be cool if you could, yeet people based on your carrying capacity. In terms of damage, This is a fairly negligible little boost. It takes us up to 69.5. I know previously it was 64.5. I'm pretty sure I missed out on a number somewhere. Yeah, it should have been 65.5 for the last 3 levels. The second time I've recorded the video and I still messed that one up. Silly me. You'll live. School of Hard Knocks is at level 9. This gives us an extra d12 damage once per turn when we attack with an unarmed strike or pugilist weapon. Along with that, we can forgo that damage in order to make sure that the next time the creature is hit by an attack, then the attack deals maximum damage of the attack's damage dice rather than rolling. That's fantastic if you're setting up another player with a smite, for example, or I said this last time as well, or a big old chromatic orb. But the issue is if you don't roll the dice for chromatic orb, you can't bounce chromatic orb, which is, you know, sad. It also gives the creature a disadvantage on attack rolls against anything other than you. So it's a nice little taunt ability if that's what you're after. The damage here goes up to 81.5 because we're just getting a 12 damage boost, which is not bad at all. Level 10, we get Herculean, which doubles our carrying capacity based on our strength score, which means that our carrying capacity at this point is genuinely preposterous because we've also got the hulking figure thing. If you can also get someone to enlarge you, you could carry the entirety of Toril on your back nearly, which is, you know, a fun image. Maybe Atlas was a pugilist. Niche mythological joke for you. Along with that, if you hit an object, it's a crit and your jump distance is doubled. That's a ribbon feature. You also get Shake It Off. This is a really odd one. So you can remove an exhaustion level at the start of each of your turns, but you can only do this once per long rest. Along with exhaustion, you could also remove blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, paralyzed, poisoned, restrained, or stunned. You can use this feature again if you take a level of exhaustion to do so. You could theoretically build up exhaustion to use this, but you can't do that if the only condition on yourself is exhaustion, because you'd be gaining a level to reduce the level of exhaustion, you see. It's an interesting one, and it's fun to see more mechanics that tying into the exhaustion vibe of the class. I like it conceptually. It just feels a bit peculiar in practice, I think, unless you're constantly being charmed, for example. Damage-wise, we get nothing. At level 11, we go up to a d12 on our damage dice, which is quite nice. An extra 2 damage per hit, which is an extra 8 damage across the 4 hits. We also get the heavyweight ability, which means that when we grapple or shove with unarmed strikes, we count as one size larger again. So we've got so many things now feeding into our ability to do this kind of stuff. Additionally, you don't have to spend extra movement to move a creature grappled by you if the creature is your size or smaller, because you count as one size larger when you're doing it. You can grapple large creatures without issue. If you were to go for a Goliath instead of the Simic hybrid here, you'd theoretically be able to go to huge if you were in your larger form, and that's fun. This is also the rest of the grappler feat apart from the advantage on grappled creatures again, which might honestly still be worth the feat choice, but it's up to you. The boost to our overall damage here takes us up to 90.5 in total. It's 8 plus 1, by the way, because we get 1 extra point because of the grappled damage thing, and then 2 per attack. Which is looking at the numbers and worrying I've done it wrong again. Level 12, we're going to take Charger, which is an extra d8 if we move in a straight line to get to a creature, which is, you know, fun. We can also push them away or do something else instead, but we're not going to do that. We're going to punch them a little bit harder, right? This means that our damage at level 12 has gone up to 103.5, which is not bad at all. Level 13, we get Dig Deeper. You can use a bonus action to dig deeper. For 1 minute, you have all the benefits of your Dig Deep and you can use your School of Hard Knocks twice per turn. This is an extra d12 per turn, and it also means, boop, we get more consistent access to the resistance as well, which is not bad. This takes our damage up to 115.5. Nice. Level 14, we get advantage on strength, dex, and con saves, and if you fail a saving throw, you can spend 1 moxie point to re-roll it. That's going to get pretty expensive pretty quickly. I do it occasionally on my high level monk, and even with 17 focus points and a bunch of ways to restore them, it still feels kind of rough sometimes. Damage remains the same. Level 15 gives us Pugnacious, which is a great word and is nothing to do with the adorable dog breed. When you roll initiative, you can remove 1 level of exhaustion from yourself, and you regain your use of not only down but not out, dig deep, and shake it off. You can only do this once per long rest. I really like this as a feature design. The ability to get back your one-use subclass features or class features built into the thing at a later level is fantastic. And I really hope other third-party developers pay attention to this as a design concept, because having this later on in most classes would be amazing. Doesn't do anything for our damage though. So hey, our ASI at 16, I am just going to take con. Technically that would add another extra damage to our attacks if we've done our special bloodied thing. Down but not out. But like I said, I'm not factoring that into every single combat because I just don't think it's realistic. Neither is hitting every single attack and always having moxie points, but that's an aside, right? Level 17, our damage dice goes from a 1d12 to a 2d6, which normally bumps up the average from 6.5 to 7, which is something. It also raises the floor, but keeps the ceiling the same level, but also harder to achieve. You've got a 1 in 12 chance of rolling a 12 on a d12, obviously. You've only got a 1 in 36 chance, I think, of rolling 2 6s. So it gets harder to do max damage, but your damage is more consistent, which is something. What's really funny is if you are doing max damage on your dice, it's completely irrelevant. So maths. We also get clean finish, which is our subclass capstone. This lets us take a reaction if we're grappling a creature to make a creature do a con save or become incapacitated. And then if they do that again on their next turn and they fail again, their hit points are just reduced to 0. So you've basically just knocked them out, which is really cool. You can only do this once per long rest if you reduce a creature to 0. So you can incapacitate creatures all day long, but you cannot always reduce them to 0. Doesn't do anything for our damage though. At 18, we get Fighting Spirit. This lets us get back up if we've hit 0 hit points but not killed outright. That's always nice, once per long rest. Level 19, we get an epic boon. The epic boon on this class is Busted, D&D Beyond, so it shows us as having taken this twice, but it only seems to apply once, so that's fine. I went for the boon of Bloodshed because it lets you get advantage on your next attack rolls if you can see a creature that's been reduced to 0 hit points. It lets us boost our con by another 1, which is something. I think we've got 19 con now. And it also lets us once per turn make an attack roll while bloodied. You can deal extra damage equal to your proficiency bonus, which is nice. I'm not including that. It's a measly extra 6 damage, which is not relevant. I'll throw it on at the end. Right, and then finally at level 20, we get our capstone, which is an extra 2 points in strength and con, up to a maximum of 23, which accounts for your epic boon boost, theoretically. I kind of wish that it was up to a maximum of 24, or just up to a maximum of something else, because there are other ways to boost those scores, and it's kind of limiting to have that there. You also get the ability to remove all exhaustion on a long rest, and you get the ability to regain 40 hit points when you take a short rest as well, which is all good stuff. Damage-wise, this takes us up to 122.5, or if we are using our down but not out ability, it gives us an extra 10 points, assuming we do have a 5 con modifier. If you're assuming we're also at 5 exhaustion levels, that's an extra 10 hit damage per hit. So normally it'd be 120.5. With the extra damage, it would be 160.5. And that is decent damage for a level 20 character, undoubtedly. However, as good as that is, it does not match up with a few of my builds, actually, and surprisingly, the Scion of the 3 Battlesmith multiclass I did is actually 10 points ahead of this if you're not using the down but not out feature, and that was the average damage for that build. That's not the maximum damage for that build. Along with that, the Entropy Druid is 60 points ahead of the down but not out and 20 points ahead of the of the down but not out, but it's also double it if you're doing your action surge. The Enspelled Sorcerer is 17 points behind this build, but I mean, that wasn't a particularly strong build, it was just a cool one. The Flaming Fist Monk Cleric build that went up on Monday, that's actually 20 points ahead of even the maximum damage version of this because of the sheer volume of attacks you can do. And actually that wasn't even technically the best amount of damage that could do because I was using the brand on one of the hits. Theoretically that could be another 30 points or so higher, even without action surge. It's also worth noting that the Enspelled Sorcerer actually has a 39% chance to crit per hit, and the Entropy Druid has a 58% chance to crit per hit. And then the Blade Singer as well is 210 damage without action surge too, which makes that 50 points ahead of this. The Dragoon Fighter I didn't take to 20, but was doing 139 damage with action surge, granted, but at level 15. And actually at level 5, that's the strongest build I've done. That was doing 80 damage at level 5, which is a lot. Although I think I was relying on a slightly stronger weapon because lances. But yeah, that's all the maths. You could build the crit fishing list, but I never factor in crit damage to my numbers because I just don't. I could, theoretically. I always mention it if I'm going for a crit fishing build. And you could certainly make the crit fisher with the sweet science one. And I probably will because it makes me weak at the knees, it does. But I think that this shows that DPS-wise, there are classes that are better than this. The Entropy Druid is, you take 3 levels of fighter, but even if you don't do that, you're still doing more damage than this can. And this is maxing the damage, and it has a better crit chance with the Druid as well. Same with the Blade Singer. You could multi-class that, and I did, but you don't have to, and it's still doing a lot more damage. And if your answer to that is, well, the Blade Singer's busted, well, then it's really not an issue that this is doing 50 points less damage in the best possible situation, I don't think. Like I said, the Inspelled Sorcerer was 156.5 when you were doing your Action Surge, which is 4 points off the maximum that this is doing. And again, all of the other builds, I'm talking about average damage, not maximum damage. This one I'm assuming maximum damage, and the statistical likelihood of you hitting with every single hit is preposterously low, let alone doing maximum damage, which means the variance built into the way that I do it, the theoretical errors in my methodology of assuming that everything hits, they're exemplified and they're just made worse if you're assuming max damage on everything, right? But yeah, I do think the Pugilist is strong. I do. I think it's complicated. I think it's got a lot of features. I think it's fantastically designed. I think it's brilliant. I think it looks like it would be a blast to play no matter which subclass you're going for. I love the flavor and the roleplay suggestions within each subclass. And sure, it's a lot stronger than, you know, some rogues and monks maybe. But I mean, I've got a monk build that beats this. I've got a rogue build that nearly beats this. I'll do a straight fighter at some point that will probably nearly beat this. Actually, the purification fighter, the cleric fighter build I did, I only took that to 15 and that was doing 195 damage. That was higher than this at level 15, and I could have made that a lot better, ultimately. I will be taking all of my builds to level 20 from now on in order to make these things more consistent. I think these are actually quite useful to have, and it's kind of fun. The link to this is in the description, so, you know, check it out, have a look. I've also left silly notes in it, so have fun with that. I won't be putting every build in there because some of the builds aren't DPS wise, but if you want me to put the other builds in there, let me know in the comments and I will add the other builds in there because it is a useful resource just to be able to check any of the builds I've done, if that's what you want to do. But yeah, that's it. Hopefully you can all put down your pitchforks about the Pugilist. I understand the reaction to third-party content and it being stronger than first-party content, but I think that there's also a flawed line of thinking in assuming that first-party content is the level of power that things should be at. You look at the Twilight Cleric, and that was first-party content, right? I think it's good for martials to have stronger starts and more chances to do cool things, and the Pugilist does that, honestly. So yeah, that's that. I hope you enjoyed the video. I enjoyed making it. I enjoyed the build. Theoretically, I would love to play grappling 4 dudes at a time. That just sounds like an absolute blast mechanically. Throwing people in front of attacks and things just sounds great. Giving advantage to all your allies as well. It sounds wonderful. But that's it. I think I've said that's it like 4 or 5 times now. So that is actually it this time. I hope you take care of yourself and you know, get some sleep, have a good nap, sleep well, have some stresses unstress themselves for you, get some workouts in, have a donut, all that good stuff. I'll see you next time, or you'll see me next time because that's actually how videos work. I can't see you. That'd be weird. Goodbye.